Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Away Games, a Chicago Cubs podcast hosted by two stand-up comedians. I am one of them. My name is Adam Amawala, and I'm here in the home of the other one, Kevin McCaffrey. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing great. We are two stand-up comedians. We're just talking about how that might not be technically true much longer if our industry goes away, as it might be. It might be going on hiatus.
Our jobs rely on people gathering in large crowds.
So for the moment, not, if they had, sometimes you'll see lists, publications will come out with lists for like best jobs for this year or the upcoming decade, or like what jobs are growth industries and stuff. So we're on the, could go extinct pretty soon.
Yes, counterpoint. The only thing I have at my merch table is Purell.
Oh, shoot. There we go. Again, getting in the merch game is probably,
I have specific koozies with a joke on them that only fit Purell bottles.
Oh, man. Perfect.
Little mini koos.
This guy's ready to go. Yeah. So the, and it's weird to hear that, hearing rumors about like, oh, well, would they play games without crowds?
They Baltimore this thing.
But just straight up Baltimore. Or they do that, I guess, with soccer games that when people are too racist. Sometimes.
Right, racist, or there's like a real threat of rioting.
Yes.
It's weird to not... Don't you feel like there's just like a cloud hanging over everything right now?
Yeah.
Like no one's like saying it necessarily, but you can just feel... And like, Kevin and I live in New York, and I imagine it's everywhere. I'm sure it's Chicago or wherever you live, but like... It's just kind of in the air, perhaps literally, that people are like, it's just an uneasiness everywhere.
Yeah, it's it would be nice to let's get baseball going. That if we have to be locked and quarantined into our homes anyway, let's put this on TV. And it's coming up. There's at least spring games are on. I checked the MLB app. Whoa, my alarm's telling me it's time to do a podcast. There's spring games going on, and I logged into my MLB account.
Nice. And that's always a fun first login of the year.
Yep, and then it said it wouldn't work, so that's how you know the season has begun. Is my Fire Stick MLB?
Sorry, you're blacked out. You're within 2,000 miles of where this game is happening.
Yes, you're blacked out. You are within the nation of the team that's playing. But watching on my PS4 works. Much better app on there, and so it's been nice to see.
Man, yeah, it's. Do you think they would do that? Like, are there? In general, will sports play games in front of no one?
I mean, I know the leagues have had... The NBA definitely had official conversations about, like, would they play...
And LeBron apparently was like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, the Marlins have been doing it for years.
Yeah, the Marlins, I mean, honestly...
They originated it.
Oh, it's too bad for them that this didn't happen during the offseason, because that would have been a real free agent draw. Like, guys, don't worry. You're safe. Like 81 games a year, you can't be infected.
It's true.
No one's here. That's the new market inefficiency is not the plague. So cool. But there is actual baseball going on, and people are still watching it in person for the moment. This morning, as we record this, we're recording this Tuesday, even though it will drop Wednesday. A couple of guys were optioned out of big league camp. Adbert Alzolay was optioned down, and Colin Ray. So if you're making a list of the starting rotation, those guys are probably like 7th and 8th-ish in your rotation. So so that's basically a sign that, there's not going to be a weird surprise for that 5th spot. Both Chatwood and Alec Mills are pitching great. Mills is pitching extremely well.
Yeah.
And
Underwood has looked pretty good.
Yeah, Underwood's looked good as far as a relief guy without any options. And so we have Alzolay and Ray were optioned down to AAA. But either one of those guys could be first man up if they need someone to fill a rotation spot. And Trent Giambrone, which is a fun name, and he was playing great, 12 RBIs already, and he was optioned down to the minor league camp. But I think that Giambrone is a guy who I think we're going to see on the major league roster at some point this year.
And I hope that his player weekend jersey is Brony with the unicorn emoji.
Yeah. Yeah.
'Cause isn't that a thing? Like, it's like men who are into My Little Pony. Are you aware of this?
I am aware of this.
Bronies?
Yes. Bronies being kind of a brand of a thing, and I don't know when it started, but I remember becoming aware of it when I was home and I was back at my wife's hometown of Terre Haute, Indiana, and there was a guy, and she was like, "Oh yeah, he's a brony," and I didn't know that was a thing. But there's bronies in Terre Haute.
It sounds like short for jabroni, but it's very different.
Yes, and my wife, when she heard the announcer call Trent Giambroni's home run, she was like, there is not a Trent Giambroni. And I was like, there's not, but it's pretty close and it's pretty great. But he's a guy who has speed and surprising pop, and he can play. He plays mostly second base, but he can also play the outfield corners and play a little third. So he's a guy who's interesting. You know,
I'd love for the Astros to change their names to the Houston Jabronis.
You might as well be. Yeah, be.
Just lean into it.
Yes. Just complete.
Full heel.
Yeah, absolute heel turn. Bring out steel chairs to the plate. And Michael Rucker was a guy who the Orioles took from the Cubs, Rule 5 style. Reliever, right-handed, velocity pretty high up there. And he was just returned to the Cubs, so he's in Cubs camp right now.
That's such a weird thing.
The Rule 5?
Yeah, I understand how it works, but it's such a bizarre system.
It's a weird, it seems like it's and it is a rule from like a long time ago, like unnecessarily complicated, kind of like you can have him unless you make him leave for a day, and then he goes to his original home. It's like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
But the Cubs do have a guy like that too, Trevor McGill.
And they would have to return him to the Padres. Yeah.
And he's on the cusp for a roster spot.
Yeah, and that's when it gets hard. Is like, do we like this guy enough to, not return him? And because you risk giving somebody back who then becomes a big bullpen piece somewhere, whatever. I mean, there's like Rondon is a Rule 5 guy. There's a number of
that's right.
Yeah,
Rondon, and that was getting Rondon as a Rule 5 guy was very smart at the time, getting like a high velocity, high ceiling reliever that you could carry on a team that wasn't going to win anyway. Because then at the end of the year, you now have the player in perpetuity. They're now like actually on the roster.
Yeah, and I think I would assume it's set up that way, that Rule 5 is something that benefits worse teams because you have more of an ability to keep fringe guys on your team versus a team like the Cubs that especially like their bullpen looks actually deeper than one would have expected given the fact they didn't really invest a lot in it other than bringing in Jeffress, I guess.
Yeah, Jeffress, who is looking good, and his velocity's low, creeping up on mid-90s right now, which is good because he definitely needs to be a little above where he was last year. Back when he was an all-star just a couple years ago. As long as he's sitting mid-90s, you feel pretty good about him. But yeah, the Cubs had picked Caleb Smith as a Rule 5 pick a couple years ago and couldn't hold on to him, and now he's an actively good starter for the Marlins. So it's like that's they had the right idea but just couldn't hang on to him there. What you can do is you can complete a trade with the team so that you got them for Rule 5, so then you can option the player to the minors without losing him.
Yeah.
So I would not be at all surprised for the Cubs to pull off some sort of minor deal with the Padres, like trading some minor league player of not a super high caliber, to be able to option McGill and keep him in the organization.
It just occurred to me. The most Manfred thing imaginable would be that if at some point people are literally banned from going to games, they would still black them out. Like, we literally are legally banned from being there, and also we still can't watch them.
That is a dystopian and funny premise where it's just like, you legally, I can't leave my home, and you're still blacking it out because I'm in market. That would be crazy to see. Like, I have no confidence that they would have a rule, any sort of rule in place to allow. You would think you could just press a button and take away the blackout, but I have no confidence in Manfred or anyone to.
And who knew that in retrospect, the most disturbing part about the Astros controversy is the fact that they were touching trash cans.
The dirtiest way to cheat. Bunch of Oscar the Grouch ass. Oh man. Do we have, speaking of TV stuff, is there any marquee news that we've missed?
I don't want to misreport it because millions of people listen to this, but my understanding is that people who have the since rebranded Xfinity or Comcast or whatever are not optimistic that they're going to be able to watch the Cubs for like the first half of this season.
I mean, that would be an inexcusable, colossal failure. One that the Dodgers basically already have a scenario like that playing out. So not only would it be an inexcusable fuck up, but it would be you already had a big market team sort of show you the path to this and show you a bad example, and to still pull it off. From what I understand, the Cubs have offered, it's the same deal that they've offered all the other carriers, but Comcast wants a better deal, and they are the biggest, so that's partially how negotiation works.
Right.
But it's just it's a bad.
But then there's I think Marquee is available through Hulu or something, right? Do you know?
Yes, they have a deal with Hulu. Yeah, but I also don't know if there's like a blackout, any sort of blackout involved with that. But yeah.
In the broadcast you've seen, have you seen any of the Marquee broadcasts like through spring training?
I guess so, but not enough to really notice anything.
Yeah, I haven't really noticed any big differences. Improvements or anything negative, really.
Everything I've seen is just normal baseball for the most part.
Right.
I mean, Kelly Kroll's not there anymore. We've got someone else.
That I still don't understand.
No, it makes no sense. The Braves got her, so that's good for them. But yeah, that's the only difference I've noticed broadcast wise. Is that she's gone, and that sucks. But
who's the new person they have?
God, this is something I really should know. And
I mean, it's kind of fairly obscure.
Yeah. Replace. Let's see if we can search that. Replace Kelly.
Some Kelly Kroll scab. We got a replacement player.
I actually did see the woman they hired. And she was doing a good job. Like, she seemed cool, but I don't know who it. I know Kroll replaced Kelsey Wingert on Braves TV, but I don't know who the Cubs.
It'd be funny if it was just like a straight up trade. Like now she was just with the Cubs.
Yeah, and we get a draft pick.
Is there a Rule 5 draft pick for sideline reporters?
Right. Yeah, if you don't let them get in on a sideline report, they have to be returned to the team.
Like, we just have to let Doug Glanville cover the Phillies if we don't use him?
Yeah. Oh, man, I remember being heartbroken about the Doug Glanville trade because I was just such a Glanville fan. I went from Mickey Morandini, and Morandini was good that year. So.
I mean, if things go a little differently in 2003, Glanville has one of the biggest hits of that postseason.
Yeah, the triple,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
the triple in Pro Player Stadium.
Yeah, God. Yeah, a weird like second run with the Cubs that time. Yeah, so we're getting close to, we're 2 weeks away from opening day, March 26th.
Yep.
Do you have any opening day plans?
Watching with you.
Oh yeah, baby! I will be.
We haven't discussed this.
We haven't, but I will be like back in town. I believe the night before that.
Nice.
So I will be in New York for that.
And I'm still going to try to watch Major League with you and drink.
I can do that too. These are all things that are within my skill set.
It's a 2:00 game against the Brew Crew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, starting with an intense first series.
I like it.
Mm-hmm.
And an earlier home opener than usual, because the Cubs have that game. I think it's in Milwaukee, and then the first series after that is in Chicago.
Yeah.
So the home opener's like in March still.
It could be a very chilly one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it could be 70. Who the hell knows?
Yeah, it was 70 here yesterday. So Sahadev Sharma put out a piece, basically the latest update, his latest update on roster projection. Did you
I did. Yeah.
Read that? Any thoughts, feelings on how the roster is shaping up right now, 2 weeks out from opening day?
We've talked about this before, but I think I always try to not get too high or too low on any of these people because it is spring training. Mm-hmm. So if you're gonna overreact about Kimbrel not looking good, then you also probably shouldn't get too excited about Ian Happ hitting 500.
Right.
But I think I look for more specific things. Like they mentioned that article, or Sahadev mentioned that as of whenever it was written, that in 26 plate appearances, Happ has struck out only 3 times. Like when I see stuff like that, that makes me excited.
Yes, right. When they're working on a very specific thing.
Yeah, or Almora getting like underneath the ball a little bit more and driving it a little bit better instead of basically just being a singles hitter. Yeah,
and the center field guys have both been playing very well in the spring, and obviously you saw Ian Happ sort of bring the positive changes he made to the major league level and sustain it at the end of last year. So I think we both probably feel more confident about Happ than Almora here at the moment.
And I mean, obviously you'd think they're kind of pushing each other because they realize that their playing time is going to be affected how the other person is.
Yeah.
playing.
Yeah, and it seems like if obviously they tendered Almora a contract of $1.8 million, so they have him still in the plans, and it's before spring training started, I thought there was a decent chance Almora would start in the minors to get regular at bats and work on what the improvements that he had to make to not be the worst offensive player in baseball, which he was for a good long chunk of the last year and a half. But it seems like that is a thing with the spring he's having that's probably off the table at this point.
Yeah, I mean, anything can happen, and things happen pretty quickly. If he goes 1 for 30 the next week, then probably there's a bigger chance of that. But assuming that he doesn't fall off in a dramatic way, it would be hard to imagine him not being on the opening day roster.
Yeah, and like you say, where you're not really sweating spring stats, but there's specific things you can look for. Like you said to Hap, who
he reworked his swing, Almora.
Yeah, Almora reworked the swing, and according to Sahadev, scouts he's talked to seem to be positive on what they're seeing, even beyond the results, just the way the swing has changed. Yeah, and at the same time, it's like you look at Kimbrel, who's given up a couple homers already, and that is a little concerning because that was the big bugaboo. He just gave up way more. He gave up more homers than he ever gave up in a season in half a season.
Yeah,
with the Cubs. So
I mean, if you want to encapsulate last season into one instance, it's the back-to-back home runs on back-to-back pitches against the Cardinals in that second to last.
I was watching that at the beer garden in Astoria on my phone. It was someone else's birthday, and I was trying not to bum myself out. And I remember I just kept sort of checking my phone, and just I thought I got it wrong because it was deja vu.
At that point, I mean, because that was the Saturday game, and they had already lost Thursday and Friday in sad and dramatic fashion. Yeah. I had to leave after the end of the 8th, and that was after the weird Tony Kemp at bat where he almost strikes out and then homers or something bizarre like that. And when I looked at my phone, I had game day on, and I literally just started laughing. Yeah, it's this is just ridiculous at this point.
Yeah, insane. So you still want to see Kimbrel get the velocity a little up. It's not to where you want it. It's 95, 90, touching 96, which is good in general, but he needs more than that to be him. And then just speaking of the center field picture, so those two guys are looking good. Yeah. But as this roster is coming together, one guy who's not looking good is Daniel Descalso is still not hitting anything. Yeah. So I think we're getting to the point where you're looking at how this roster comes together, and it's really hard to justify a spot for Daniel Descalso.
Because if the other people that he's competing with are Bodie, Kipnis, and Horner, where is there a spot for Descalso? He's not going to play the outfield, nor is there even room for him there.
No. Barring an injury, it's because basically Kipnis is Descalso as a profile. He's a left-handed hitter who hits better against righties. He has a better track record. He has more general athleticism.
Right.
And it seems like Kipnis is looking all right, and he's likely to be in the starting roster in the starting 9 on opening day. But Kipnis and Bodie, you basically have a platoon there. And one thing that did surprise me about Sahadev's piece was saying that the Cubs are, from what he can tell, the Cubs are leaning towards Nico Horner on the opening day roster.
Yeah, that surprised me a little bit too.
Because it seems to me like he didn't get the time in AAA, obviously, and just racking up at bats right now, regular at bats. I see a lot of value in that for Nico Horner, and there's just a lot that the Cubs have at second base that I'm also pretty happy with right now. Yeah. So it also helps service time. To help them service time manipulate the guy, which it's not. Neither one of us is in favor of that as a principle, but I don't think the Cubs are worse most days, especially in the early going with a lot of days off when you guys don't really need breaks, if Horner's not there.
No, and I kind of assumed as soon as they signed Kipnis that the plan would be to start him in AAA because it just made sense that way.
Yeah, and it worries me a little bit about the opportunities they're planning on giving David Bodie. I mean, I guess we'll see.
Right.
But because it seems like if Horner's playing, the at-bats are probably mostly coming from David Bodie.
Well, what do you realistically see as Bodie's ceiling?
I mean, ceiling, I think, you dream on a poor man's Justin Turner, which I think was a comp you made, where it's like a guy, and I think he has, if not elite, very high level exit velocity,
Yep.
a good eye, good approach at the plate. Sneaky power, plays second and third pretty well. I think the defense we saw from him last year was a little bit of an anomaly. He's better than that. So I mean, I think he's a solid big league regular. I think his ceiling, and I don't know that his ceiling is higher than Nico Horner's, but I don't know. I'm pretty comfortable with the Bodie Kipnis platoon to start the year, and then also shifting Bodie around to other positions as needed.
Is it just me, or with the beard he has, does Steven Souza kind of resemble Ben Zobrist? Every time they show him in the dugout, I'm like, Ben?
Ben? Is that? It's like a dream version of Ben Zobrist,
Right.
where it's like, I know that's Zobrist, but it's not.
Yeah.
I could see that a little bit.
Something about the size and color of his beard is very Zobristy.
Yes, I could see that for sure.
And he has officially announced his retirement. I think that's something that broke within the past week.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Okay, I saw that he hadn't announced his retirement, but was in camp and also saying, like, I'm not here to play. Mm-hmm. But, okay.
It's my understanding, at least from tweets that I've seen, that he has said now that he's retiring.
Well, I mean, that's it's tough. A tough way for him to end last year, but striking out Yadi Molina is a pretty fun way to remember Ben Zobrist on the way out.
Absolutely, and I think, and I'll ask you what your top Zo memories are. Obviously, people will remember the hit in Game 7 as they should, as his signature moment. Did you look it up?
Yeah, it looks like there's a. I'm seeing one seemingly trustworthy report. Okay. As of 2 days, Ben Zobrist has officially retired. Yes, Bruce Levine. I'll count that. I will count that report. Ben Zobrist told us in a small group of reporters that he is, of course, retired and enjoying raising his kids. He said he would like to keep the door open with the Cubs to work in some capacity down the line.
Get him on board.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say was, it goes without saying that the hit in Game 7 is his iconic Cubs moment. It's an iconic baseball moment. Mm-hmm. But when you think about how those playoffs played out, there are hits in both of those series leading up to, without that bunt against the Dodgers and without, obviously, that huge hit in Game 4 against the Giants, I don't know that the Cubs win either of those series.
No, and I think those are a couple of the best singular moments of Ben Zobrist, and one of the things that was so great about Zobrist, I think, was just the consistency of the guy. That he was a guy who I never. So it's less of a single moment thing with him, but he was a guy who he had the 1 year where he was injured and there was just no power there.
Yeah.
Besides that, he was a guy who I feel like you just didn't worry about in the lineup or playing defense at any position. You didn't have to worry about putting him in the perfect position to succeed, because I feel like he was just kind of a calm sort of machine wherever he was. Whereas we talk about last year where Jason Hayward had a good year if you put in 12 variables and just keep it to exactly that. He can't lead off and he can't face lefties and all this other stuff. Whereas Zobrist could lead off. He hit cleanup a lot for a while. He could hit anywhere in the lineup. It didn't change his production.
And I think he's almost in a Rizzo category where he's so steady that you forget to appreciate him as much as you should.
Yeah, and I'm glad in that 2016 year he did get the All-Star start. That year with the Cubs when they had the full Cubs infield basically. And as far as single moments go, I also very much enjoy the time he got thrown out arguing, and Madden had to be like, "Man, you just threw out Ben Zobrist." It's do you know how wrong you were? Man was like, "That's never happened," Zobrist arguing with a ball strike call enough to get tossed.
Right,
it's great.
Well, I mean, Ken and I were lucky enough to get to see his return to the Cubs last year in that game against the Mariners. Oh, yeah. And that was a really cool thing to be able to see, despite my immense hatred of his walk-up song.
Yes, and that it remained.
Yeah.
That's a really kind of, I guess, appropriately quiet exit for Ben. Not a real
Tim Duncan-ass exit.
Yeah, it totally is, where he didn't announce it at the time, and then there hasn't been any big press conference or anything. And just also cool that he knew he was retired, and we've seen him wearing a Cubs jersey, signing autographs for kids after he was retired in a Cubs jersey. Like,
Yeah.
he quite literally owed the team nothing at that point, and he was still going out being cool, meeting fans. So, hell yeah, Ben Zobrist. Great trade. I remember being sad when it involved Starlin leaving, because I love Starlin Castro.
But were you not at the winter meetings when the signing happened?
I was. Well, yeah, I was. I was at the winter meetings and saw Zobrist, who lived in Nashville at the time, because it was they happened in Nashville, and it was announced the night before when I went to see LeBron play in person. I saw a game in Cleveland before driving down there, and then walked around the lobby of the Opryland Hotel and saw Zobrist. Like, hey, there's our newest.
Zobrist announced that he is bringing his talents to the North Shore.
Yes, hell yeah. Yeah, so thank you, Zobrist. Let's get him involved in some capacity.
Yeah, why not? And at the very least, throw him like a kind of a bullshit job, the way that they
Ross.
got Ross or anybody like that.
Right,
Keep him on the payroll.
Yeah, exactly. Just special assistant, ambassador, whatever. Totally. One thing in terms of outfield guys at the edge of the roster, and talking about the final spot, basically, where I think if everyone is healthy, I don't really see a spot for Daniel Descalso. But a guy I'm starting to like for the edge of the roster is outfielder Ian Miller. So Ian Miller, an extreme base stealing guy. He leads spring training in steals right now. He has 8 already. 8 steals already.
In how many games?
I mean,
8?
Basically.
Yeah.
I mean, like, not a lot of games. We've been, as we sit here today, it's, spring training's been going for 16 days,
Yeah.
He's stolen, I think it's close to 250 bases in the minors. He's in his late 20s, and he's not a particularly good hitter, but he's an extremely fast guy, and can play center field, obviously.
Billy Hamilton type?
Yeah, Hamilton type. I think the speed it's not quite Hamilton, but it's elite speed, and on top of speed, his base stealing seems to be extremely efficient.
Right.
He's almost never thrown out in the minors over the last couple of years. His first year or two in the minors, he was a guy who just ran wild and got thrown out a bunch, but also racked up numbers. In the last couple of years, he's gotten very efficient at it. So for a 26-man spot, and I like that David Ross said he's not looking to fill his bench with like 5 utility guys. You don't need 5 guys who can play every position.
No, because if somebody does get hurt, then you call somebody up the next day. You don't need to have these guys just sitting there.
Exactly. So I think what I want them looking for at the end of this bench is someone who has a particular skill that the team can deploy in specific situations that they don't have otherwise. So if that's power bat off the bench, okay. PJ Higgins would be a guy who takes a lot of walks.
Sounds like a fine Irish bar.
PJ Higgins, we're going to be there next week for a live St. Patrick's Day episode. But Higgins he can catch, so that's a third catcher is another idea, which would either be PJ Higgins, who can also play third base, or Josh Fagley. But I'm really liking the idea of Ian Miller. It was so fun having Terrence Gore up, you know? And he might not be...
Until he swung at ball 4.
Until he had to take any fucking at-bats, which was absurd in the place
especially
of
three at-bats.
Jesus Christ.
Very sorry you were there.
Yeah, me too. But I'm liking the idea of a real base-stealing threat to bring off the bench and run for it late in the game. So I'm kind of crossing my fingers about that.
Yeah. You got anything else?
No, not really. I think. Oh, I mean, the only thought is the only other thought, and this isn't super original, but it's becoming clear to me every day. As Mills pitches well, as Chatwood pitches well. Alzolay hasn't had the best spring yet, but
hence being
option down, and that makes sense. He's just a guy who's never logged enough innings, really. And Colin Ray, you figure, is a real 5th, 6th starter type. He had a really good year in AAA last year, but I think as we're seeing the end of the rotation, as the Cubs have a bulk of options, I think it's making it more imperative that they do trade either Chatwood or Quintana to get under the luxury tax, basically. And then start... I think, basically, if you can trade Quintana, you start Chatwood and Mills. I think the drop-off isn't huge, I think it would be officially waving the flag on this as a failure of a trade.
Right.
But that's where we are now, and I don't think they should have been concerning themselves with getting under the luxury tax, but they did. They made no additions, so the worst case scenario would be to not get under.
Right.
You know.
But don't you think that's too risky to have somebody who's prone to walking the world and somebody who's an unproven starter as your fourth and fifth going into the season?
I do. I think we know. It's almost like I think, Chatwood obviously has a higher variance of possibilities because he's got great stuff, and also we've seen him be unplayable. He was solid last year. He looked solid enough in spring this year. I think with Mills, we basically there's lower variance. It's a lower ceiling, too. But I think we more or less know this is a workable fifth starter. And then I think, you're talking about filling the final spot with some combination of Colin Ray, Alzolay. If one of those two guys doesn't work, Colin Ray, Alzolay, Corey Abbott types. And Jarrell Cotton, one of the new guys. I mean, I think it does not make your team better, but I think the drop-off is minimal enough that they've already committed to this idea that I don't agree with, but commit to it or don't. And and the thing is, you're not really going to get anything back in a trade for this guy, in any of these guys.
Quintana?
Yeah. I don't think you're getting.
Yeah, probably not.
Because I mean, if you're having the other team pay take the contract down, which is
you're getting
huge.
like a prospect,
mid-level,
lower level prospect
yes.
at best.
Yeah,
and if you want to unload Descalso, I don't think there's any market for him.
No, yeah, I think that's exactly.
If you could somehow get somebody to pay the remainder of his contract and get nothing,
that would be a great deal. Yeah,
yeah.
So that's the only thing. That's really the main thing I'm looking at as we head into the final 2 weeks here. I don't think we're going to see any other big splashes. This team seems to be what it is, but I think at the end of that rotation is the most obvious place I see to make the money deal. That shouldn't even be talking about this. As a team of this market size and with all the money coming in, but I've got my eye out for that.
Nice. Well, either next week or the following week, we're going to have our big season preview episode. So obviously, check back in for that. As always, you can follow us at AwayGamesPod on Twitter and Instagram. AwayGamesPodcast@gmail.com. Check out our boys, BOIS, our boys at Thrive Fantasy. If you want to gamble on some shit, listen. Even if there's nobody in the crowd, you can still gamble.
The game's still going. Money
you can gamble
can
in your
still be
house.
Yeah.
That's the best part.
You can gamble.
Sure,
in
your phone
house.
is filthy, but
yeah, I mean, this might be the best way for me to personally make money.
I think so.
How have I not signed up for Thrive Fantasy account?
Don't tell people that, Kevin.
Well, but here's the thing. I thought is it like Pete Rose betting on my own team? If I'm
Oh,
doing it?
right. If you use our own promo code, which is Away Games.
Away Games. But, there's only one way to find out. I'm going to sign up for Thrive with the Away Games code.
Nice.
And then I'm going to just make a ton of money. Then we're going to be rich. And then that's it.
You're double dipping. You're getting that kickback, and you're going to win on some weird prop bets.
Love it. All about it. Sounds great to me. So that's it. We'll see you next week. Right?
Sweet.
Cool.
Later.